Welcome to another episode of the Bleeding Edge of Digital Health. Really excited about today's guests. So we've got Rohan Kalahasty and Sai Mattapalli from Vytal.ai. How you guys doing today?
We're doing great. How are you?
Great. Yeah, no, this is a first for me. I've never had a couple of teenagers on the show. You guys are both you're seniors at Thomas Jefferson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, yeah, no, I was excited. This whole thing kind of came about based on the Forbes article that you posted about the technology you guys are building at Vytal.ai, which obviously I was really excited about and reposted, and I was super excited to be able to pull this together. Was before we get into the technology and whatnot, everybody always seems to love to learn how the sausage is made, so to speak, and how this whole thing came together. It's obviously a really unique story, a pretty unbelievable story. But Rohan, why don't you kick us off by just telling kind of the origin story of how things came together, and Sai, how maybe you can jump in afterwards and let us know how you got involved.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of start at like the start of high school, I've always personally been super interested in the artificial intelligence space. I've done a lot of work on various different projects, competing in things like science fair with AI projects and doing a few internships here and there, really utilizing AI and applying it to solve issues in the medical space. And Vital was actually born out of an internship I did over at Harvard Medical School. And at that internship, I read for the first time about the linkages between eye movements and changes in your brain health. But what I realized from reading all these papers is that right now, the whole medical community is not able to take advantage of those eye movement biometrics to help evaluate brain health because to actually calculate those eye movement biometrics, you need these super expensive
Right.
headsets. They can range from like $5,000 ish all the way up to like $30,000. And it's all because of this one company called Tobii, who is they're a huge company, but they've really jacked up the prices on these eye movement headsets. So that whole field really needs to be democratized. And after I did more reading, I stumbled across a bundle of research all about creating these AI-based gaze tracking technologies that could be implemented on a smartphone or a laptop. And I sort of combined those two ideas and said, hey, can we use that AI-based gaze tracking technology to essentially democratize the usage of eye movement biometrics? And that was where the idea for Vital was born. And eventually, I ended up bringing up the idea to Sai because I knew that Sai had a lot of experience in both the finance and entrepreneurship field. And I knew from past experiences that we really do make a great duo when it comes to working on these projects. So that's how Vital was kind of
No,
born.
and before you jump in here, Sai, did you form this when you were doing your internship, or did you take what you learned from that internship, come back, and then kind of formulate it all in your head?
It was done while I was at the internship. It wasn't exactly a part of the internship
Mm-hmm.
itself. It was just kind of using what I learned from that internship, but it was definitely kind of a simultaneous
Got
thing.
it. And how'd you get involved, Sai?
Yeah, so like Rohan said, as he was going down the AI route, I was similarly going down more of like the pure neuroscience route. In ninth and 10th grade, I served as a neuroscience research intern at Georgetown. So that really gave me a strong understanding of the biological basis behind the tech we're building at Vital. And I'd say what really drew me in at a higher level, like not specific to the technology, was what exactly drew us to entrepreneurship was we realized research never really got anywhere in the world, right? We were doing these amazing research projects at, these amazing universities, but all of them ended at the publication stage, right? We worked almost for a year, we published the paper, presented at a conference, and we were lucky if maybe 10 people cited our paper, right?
Right.
And that's when we realized that to actually push our research and these products that we're building that we think could really change the world, we needed the capital that startups could bring, right? Just to get around FDA barriers, legal barriers, and to really democratize something and have it be used in the real world. We just knew that we had to go down the entrepreneurship route.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are learning a lot of the a lot of the lessons early on in life that many entrepreneurs, are faced with at 30, 40, 50 years old. So it's definitely commendable. And yeah, the eye tracking and speech recognition space is fascinating. It's in terms of digital health, it's one of the spaces that I think is probably the most compelling right now, just because the technology in large part is good enough that we can actually impact healthcare. A lot of these technologies, they're what I call concept technologies, in certain spaces within digital health. But this is something that actually can be enacted today and actually make a difference. So along those lines, what is the specific use case for what you guys are building? What's the problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah, so again, Rohan slightly touched on this with his first response, but essentially, eye tracking in the brain health space has existed for a long time, but it's not really being used at the scale that it could be because of the barrier that's added by these expensive headsets, right? So the primary target of what we're trying to do is democratize ocular biometrics as a tool for diagnostics in the brain health space, right? And ocular biometrics can be used for a variety of things, whether it's, on the sports field or for clinical trials or even in the neurologist's office, right? So it's not necessarily geared towards just diagnosing a certain type of neurodegenerative illness, but it's more so to spread the awareness and the viability of ocular biometrics.
Have you guys, and we can get into this a little bit after the, well, it's probably, yeah, we'll get into that after the technology piece, but I'd love, people always love to see kind of tangibly what the product is, what you guys are doing, what the technology looks like. If you guys can, I think you've got a screen share there. Can you just kind of pull that up and kind of walk us through what one of the tests might look like, and and what is delivered to the patient after the test, what they do with that? Is this another question I had? Is this going to be a browser-based exclusive technology, or are you guys going to be building an app for it?
Yeah, so right now our app is browser-based, and that's what our beta is built for. In the future, maybe 1 or 2 years down the line, we do want to sort of expand to a smartphone app. But what we've realized is that the laptop is really a better piece of tech to build on for this specific use
Mm-hmm.
case rather than a smartphone, because the screen size of the smartphone is so limited. It actually limits the amount of biometrics that we can calculate. So we can get a much more comprehensive view of a person's overall brain health by using the laptop to actually calculate
Yeah,
biometrics.
that makes perfectly good sense.
All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen. I think it booted me out of like the ready task stage, but I can just log in really quick and then Rohan can just walk through the app as I'm logging
Oh
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Does the camera that's available for the laptop versus the iPhone, does that make a difference as well? It being a better camera on the laptop, does that make a difference in terms of the capability of the test?
Well, the laptop webcam is what we've done most of our testing on, and that's what we've verified our current gaze tracking algorithms on. So we know that the average laptop webcam is good enough for our
Yeah.
purposes. Smartphone front-facing cameras are a bit more variable in their overall
Yeah,
quality.
no, the question, yeah, I was
It's
just
really
wondering if
dependent.
that's why you guys maybe it played into why you
Oh,
chose
yeah,
the web-based, and it sounds like it was.
it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
So
camera phone the phone cameras are good and getting there, but not great yet.
exactly. Yeah. So I guess to give like some information about what Sai is doing on the screen right now. He's currently calibrating a personalized gaze tracker for himself. So what our app does before you take any tests is we take data from you personally to essentially train a gaze tracker for you that works very well. And that's kind of how we're able to get these very accurate gaze predictions. But after you do the calibration of the gaze tracker, we have to do one other step, which is distance calculation. So we essentially use data about the sizes of your iris to try to calculate how far you are away from the screen. And that's what Sai just finished up doing right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first, so I guess to give like an overview, We run 4 tests, specifically fixation, prosaccades, antisaccades, and smooth pursuit. So what you're looking at right now is a very, very simple test. It's called fixation. All you have to do is stare at the middle of the screen while the background essentially fades into the color of the middle cross. And it's essentially testing how well you can fixate on the point as it kind of blends in over time. The overall kind of battery of tests takes around 8 to 10 minutes, depending on how good your gaze tracker is, because sometimes it'll make you recalibrate if we find that it's not good
Okay.
enough. But the doctor will actually be able to modulate how many tests they think a patient will need. It can really range anywhere from like 30 seconds to a minute all the way to 10 minutes. So this test is called the smooth pursuit test. It's also very simple. All you have to do is track the dot as it moves around the screen. So it's not jumping around, hence the word smooth
Got
pursuit.
it. Now, would a physician encourage a patient? This isn't a prescription technology at this point, right?
It's not. It's really dependent on the use case. We do imagine some doctors having their patients use this and actually telling them to use it as they see fit. But right now, we're kind of imagining it as a way for consumers to kind of look at their overall brain health and really get some information on whether or not they should go see a neurologist to check up on their overall brain
Yeah,
health.
yeah.
And then while I was screen sharing, I just obviously showed fixation and the start of Smooth Pursuit. But if any of the listeners would like to run through the entire app, it's currently open for beta testing at app.vytal.ai. That's spelled vytal.ai.
Got it. And do you guys so do you guys envision that eventually there will be a regulatory component to this? Do you envision what are some of the applications? But let's say you said a doctor might encourage a patient to utilize this. What are some of the applications? Is it Parkinson's? Is it any type of movement disorder? Is it dementia? What are some of the applications that this type of a test can uncover?
Yeah, so in terms of drawing indications for certain neurodegenerative diseases, I guess the analogous tool would be a blood pressure machine, right? Similar to how it doesn't directly output a diagnosis, but instead it outputs metrics that a doctor can then interpret. That's how we primarily envision our tool being used, at least from a clinical
Mm-hmm.
perspective. We envision it being used in a way where it's just outputting metrics that isn't really that aren't really interpretable by the patient, but it's more so interpretable by the doctor or by the neurologist. And this does two things. One, it reduces the pushback from doctors because the power is still in their
Right.
hands, and all we're doing is we're adding another tool to add to their diagnostic pipeline. And we think this would definitely also help curb a lot of the skepticism that's currently revolving around AI in healthcare. Because we're able to comfort patients that this tool isn't making a diagnosis, but it's just helping your doctor make the human-led
It's more
diagnoses.
information.
So exactly, and I mean even outside of the neurologist's office, it could also there's a huge market actually for it to be used in clinical trials. Especially recently with there being Alzheimer's drugs finally being approved by the
Yeah.
FDA, there is a huge need for quantitative ways to track the regression of these diseases, right? Because if a pharmaceutical company out there is saying that, our drug works this well, right? People are going to want to see numbers associated with that, right? And currently, obviously, qualitative assessment is the leading way to, track Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. So it'll definitely help to have a tool like ours to quantitatively over time show how exactly the disease is being regressed thanks to the drug.
Yeah,
So
no, I can definitely. Yeah, anytime there's a whether it's a device or a pharmaceutical or a biotechnology product, anytime that it's approved, I think that's the one thing that the FDA likes to see is that there's a way to measure, is this really working in the market, right? Is it working the
yeah.
way that it was intended when it was submitted to the FDA? So that makes perfectly good sense. What about concussion? I would think that there would be a serious
Mhm.
application for even the NFL, trying to figure out, maybe does a patient or the player have a concussion, but also how is their functioning? Like if you could get a baseline with this before they got a concussion at the beginning of the season, and then, if they get a concussion, what's their, return to work or return to play, right? Is there an application you guys are looking at there?
Yeah, so currently with how Neuros is set up, it's not fully geared towards concussions or specifically anything on the field because obviously it's a laptop-based application, which may be harder for physical trainers to carry around. But our tool is robust enough for future implementation, and let's say even a smartphone, right? So even with the limited metrics, we're sure that we can at least output the respective metrics for concussion diagnoses, right? And the interesting thing is the current ways that a lot of trainers, identify concussions in the first place is pretty, similar to how our app is working, right? They often have players like track their fingers, which is essentially, again, a proxy for how
Yep.
our app works, right? So we're basically just replicating what a human would do on the field, but obviously taking away, that adrenaline that the trainer may be feeling or the pressure from the player or the coach, right? So we're going to make it a lot more
Yep.
objective. So that's definitely something to look forward to, but the only unfortunate thing with that is there's a lot of barriers to implement anything in the sports field, right? Especially with the NFL. So it'll probably be, a couple years down the line after it's been validated at a couple of hospitals at an early stage. But that's definitely something we've thought about and even talked to some of our advisors about. So
And do you guys have an example of what the metrics look like? Like, what's the report look like?
Yeah, so I can pull that up right now. So this is, all right. Can I see this?
Yeah, it's pulling up right now.
Okay.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So this is just an example of a biometrics report from one of our beta testers that we got permission to share. So these are all, normal range numbers, but you get biometrics for every single test you take. So these are the biometrics associated with fixation. These are the biometrics associated with smooth pursuit.
And those numbers that
as you
are
can see, she had,
next to it are those are the what are considered to be normal ranges, I'm guessing.
yeah, those are the normal ranges as found in published
Got it.
literature. Yeah, so just a couple graphs. Those are obviously probably not interpretable by the n- like normal person,
Right.
right? They would need to be interpreted by a doctor. But there's a bunch of those graphs too, and then the final set of biometrics we have are related to saccades. As you can see, this person did very well. She had perfect scores on both the anti-saccade task and the pro-saccade task. But that's essentially how the biometrics report looks. One thing that we're working on adding and building out right now is some sort of interpretation of these biometrics that can be understood by a normal person, right? I mean, a normal person can understand all these different biometrics just by looking at it. So we want to give a 2 to 3 sentence output, sort of giving a rundown of everything. But yeah.
And then at this, and I think that's a great idea. If for no other reason, it lets them know what they might be able to discuss with their physician or whatnot. Because everybody right now is so into directing their own healthcare and taking control of their own healthcare. So if you guys have a little blurb about what this could potentially, this is something that you might want to talk to your doctor about, gives them an ability to direct that conversation. What is it that these people are supposed to do once they get this report? Then they take it to their physician and have that conversation at that, at the next appointment or whatnot, and is this a one-time thing, or do you guys recommend like ongoing? I mean, is this the type of thing where you're constantly checking your blood pressure? You might as well be checking your mental health as well.
Yeah. So let's say, I guess to answer your first question, let's say you get a result of possible cognitive decline, right? That's something that you should definitely see your doctor about, especially if it's been paired by, maybe comments from your family about your forgetfulness in the past few
Right.
months and things like
Right.
that, right? So it can be used as a push to get someone to actually go to a neurologist and get checked out to make sure that they're doing okay. So that's kind of how we expect that process to look like. And then to your other question, wait, can you repeat it really quickly?
Oh yeah. Just is this something
Just
that
make
you
sure.
recommend people be doing on an ongoing basis, quarterly, monthly, weekly?
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to make sure. So longitudinal tracking is something that's very, very important in medicine, right? It's really important to set baselines over time for your values because those values are going to be different, or those baselines are going to be different from person to person, from ethnicity to
Right.
ethnicity, right? So it's definitely something that we hope will catch on and people will start to do maybe even monthly, right? I mean, it's such an easy test to take, it's not expensive, and that'll really help people set those baselines because in medicine, you have to consider everything relatively to the past,
Right.
right? And so I guess that's how we're thinking of that.
Yeah, it's it's just like anything, right? It's just that's why these full body scans are becoming so in vogue because you can get a full body scan. And at least you got
Hmm.
a baseline of like this is what it looked like at a certain point in time, and then moving forward, if there's changes, then it doesn't necessarily mean you have cancer. It doesn't necessarily mean you have but something's different, and that's probably what you guys are trying to
Exactly.
accomplish, I think. What this is fascinating. You got what you guys have created is absolutely incredible. What's the commercial model for this, and what will it look like
Mhm.
moving forward for you guys? Who would we kind of touched on who would use it and but who would pay for it? How where's the money going to
Yeah.
change hands?
Mhm. Yeah. So from a business model perspective, we're definitely going to do a hybrid B2C and B2B model,
Hmm.
right? The B2C model is primarily for, just general people who are interested in using it for themselves. But from our market research, we found that very few companies in the medical space are able to, at the current stage, are able to really develop a business completely around B2C. I think one of the only examples is Cardia for potentially, a company that's able
Hmm.
to work fully B2C. And the issue is, again, as touched on earlier, the skepticism that currently surrounds medical tech is so rampant to the point where a lot of people aren't going to go even as far as downloading an app or trusting a computer telling them about their health, right? Which is why we think it's important to include a B2C model. But for further reliance and I guess viability from a revenue perspective, we're going to include a B2B licensing plan, right? Where we directly are forming contracts with either hospital chains like Mayo Clinic or Kaiser, or even like smaller clinics, right? And that's where we think we have the largest value because even for hospitals, this is an amazing return for them from a profit margin perspective, right? Because by adding a filter in the middle for people who are on the fence about whether they need to go as extreme as taking like an MRI or a more in-depth
Right.
scan for their brain health, it saves them a lot of time, saves them a lot of money. So that's, I guess, our business model is to do a B2C and B2B. So we're pretty much covering all of our bases for anyone who may be interested in paying for our services.
Have you guys looked at like calling on large corporations at all, or even the payers themselves? Because I would think that this would be something payers might be interested in having a certain population, 65 and above or whatnot. Because everything is all about early diagnosis these days, right? You want to know what you're
Yeah.
dealing with. The payers want to know what they're dealing with it so that they can get ahead of it. I would think. Have you guys looked
Mhm.
into that at all?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have. And I think going back to like the early diagnosis thing, I think a large part of it is also just fear, especially with neurodegenerative
Yeah.
diseases, right? A lot of people, even knowing about a family history or knowing about all these signs, they're scared to even step into the doctor's office because they're scared of what they might
Yep.
hear, right? And that's why adding a tool like ours reduces that friction to the point where it's a lot more comfortable,
Right.
right? Like sitting in the comfort of their home, they're able to check their brain health, right? Instead of having to go to an office, wait for their doctor for like 30 minutes, walk into like this white room with
Well,
like
and just
this
getting the
scary equipment
appointment
around
is a
them.
is a challenge these days,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Hmm. Yep.
so yeah, no, I totally agree. What's next for you guys? What do you have coming down the pipe? Any expanded indications or new products?
Yeah. So on the new product side of things, as I said before, we hope to go down the smartphone route in the coming years, and that's something that we've been prototyping on the side, and we have a couple of things built out, but it's not something that we're planning to push out in the near future. But more like close plans, we hope to launch our full product hopefully at the first quarter of 2024 because we've been doing vigorous beta testing and we're getting through all those bugs and we're trying to get this ready to actually launch. So that's something that everyone can look forward to in the coming months.
Hmm. Yeah, and then even from I guess from a personal perspective, like thinking long term after Vital even, I think I can speak for both Rohan and I when I say that we definitely want to continue down the healthcare entrepreneurship space because we think it's one of the most fulfilling spaces to be in right now, right? Especially, from us, we've been able to speak to people who are currently, under the duress of a neurodegenerative disease, and they've been able to actually thank us for, working in this space because they appreciate how important it is to get an early diagnosis. So that's definitely been a really rewarding part of this journey for Rohan and I. So, we're definitely hoping to continue to build in this space for as long as we
Yeah.
can.
No, I mean, listen, I talk to CEOs and founders every day, and we always joke that, like if you're in it for the money, healthcare is not the place to be. It takes a long time to build something in healthcare with the regulatory components. Anytime you're working in a regulated space, it's going to be a protracted period of time. But that's the neat thing about what we do is the people that are in this industry are passionate about it. They're passionate about helping people, and it takes people like you guys that have brilliant minds and a will and an interest in changing the world to enact that kind of benefit. So it's really, really neat, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. I'd be remiss. I know the audience is probably wondering, what are these guys doing next? Are they going to end up going to college? What do you guys want to share a little bit about personal plans? And is college going to be on hold until you figure out what you're going to do here with Vytal?
Yeah, I mean, both Sai and I are thinking about taking a gap year to, try to see what's going to happen with Vital. And based on that gap year, we might not go to college at all, and we might just, go full force for Vital. But we also are keeping college on the horizon because we both know it's a great place to meet a lot of great people, right? I mean, both Sai and I are well aware of the fact that most of our success is because we had great friends in high school who are also, very, very intelligent who helped push us forward. And we really do want to continue to be in environments like those. So that's kind of like a guiding principle for us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, no matter what you guys get into, I'm sure it'll be highly successful. And wishing you guys the best of luck on this. Let's. I'd love to keep the lines of communication open, and if you guys after you get this thing out and up and running in the marketplace, I'd love to have you guys back on the show for a recap. But thanks again for coming on the show, Rohan Kalahasty and Sai Mattapalli with Vytal.ai. That's it for this edition of The Bleeding Edge of Digital Health, and we'll catch you guys next time.